Hello, everybody, and welcome back to For Fox's Sake. This is the Women's Football Show, and I'm your host, Lily Saunders. Today, joining me is Réshma Rao. Réshma is a freelance sports journalist currently writing for The Cutback, a fantastic new women's football media platform. And I believe, Réshma, you primarily focus on not the top four teams. So fantastic to have you on in terms of from a Leicester City perspective. So thank you so much for joining us today, Reshma.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to talking about Leicester today.
Brilliant. We wouldn't have it any other way. So just a reminder once again for the viewers, head on over to www.forfoxsake.news to access a huge variety of exclusive articles and insight into all things Leicester City. The best part being a specific Fox's women's section, because who wouldn't want that? So head on over there and subscribe for the price of a pint. But yeah, without further ado, Reshma, we're going to get straight stuck into the Man United game. Overall thoughts from a fan perspective, it was one of the more positive Leicester performances, I'd say, specifically in the second half. But ultimately, it's the lack of goals and it's the lack of capitalising on perhaps, a better team's underperformance, I'd say. So what did you think of the Leicester display?
I had the exact same thoughts. I think it was a really solid performance actually from Leicester. It was a little bit of a bit disappointing because the two goals came sort of as bookends, one at the beginning and then one right at the end. But that middle bit, and especially the second half, was really solid. And you could really see how well the midfield was doing, how well the new signings have been. And yeah, there was just a lot of good, cohesion between the team. I think there were plenty of chances. Just like you said, it was the lack of goals and the lack of clinical finishing to just put the ball in the back of the net and get onto the scoreboard.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's talk about the goals, because like you say, I thought the team chemistry looked a lot better. It looks like it's building as the signings have been gelling, the new signings in the January window. Zigiotti's goal, a bit of it was a difficult one for Olivia Clark, wasn't it, with Leah Schuller blocking her view. But what did you make of the second goal, the Turlin goal, and the foul on Sam Tierney? What were your thoughts on that?
I think I think it could be viewed as a foul. She got the ball in the end, and these things are always contentious, and always you could always say that it could go the other way. But I think it was a very good finish from Turland, and I think she especially had a really good game. But you mentioned Olivia Clark, and I think she's another one who had a really great performance in the match. She made some really excellent saves. There was another save right at the end after Turland's goal, which was going in, and then there was another one in the first half from Mallard, I think. And some of those would have been goals, and I think she did really well as the defense. But she had a really great game because it could have easily been a lot higher score.
Yeah, and I think that's where Leicester had a different game to the one against Man United at the beginning of the season, when they went to play them away in Manchester. And obviously, you had Janina Leitzig in goal. We talked a bit about Janina Leitzig on some of our previous shows, waxing lyrical about her, but obviously, she's been injured, it seems, or not quite up to her usual standards. So I totally agree with you. I think Olivia Clark had a fantastic game. I think reading those shots from Man United was particularly important to keep Leicester in it. Um, let's talk about the potential penalty, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on that before I give mine. What did you make of that situation, and Shannon O'Brien and Sandberg obviously potentially committing a penalty foul there?
I think it was another really contentious one, and it could have gone either way. I think the ref potentially made the right decision, but I know that Rick Passmore he disagreed with it, and at the end of the day, until VAR or anything else of equivalent comes into the league, there's nothing really you can do about it. But I can definitely understand why many fans were upset by it and felt that that was a real opportunity that they were robbed of, and especially why the manager thought that. But yeah, what did you think?
I agree with you. For me, as a Leicester City fan, I think, I hold a certain bias, but for me, that's a penalty. And I think the refereeing was perhaps not up to usual standards. There's a lot to be said about WSL refereeing. I think that's a big topic of discussion. Um, so for me, that's a penalty. And I think that would have changed the momentum of the game. Because not only would it have given Leicester, they'll have reaped the rewards for their brilliant second half performance, but I also think it would have really kicked Man United into gear and perhaps given us a bit more of an exciting end to the game. I think that should have ended 1-1. That I think that was a foul on Tierney as well. But again, biased, but for me, I don't think Ziggiotti had any intention to go for the ball, much like Sandberg. I think they both clattered into the respective Leicester players and sort of claimed physicality, but to me it was more cynical than that. But
I
yeah,
think
I
you're
mean,
exactly,
go
sorry,
ahead,
I think you're
please.
exactly right though about how that could have shifted the momentum. And even if it was a penalty given and Leicester didn't convert it, I think that still would have put a lot more pressure on Man United, because you could tell that they were feeling it and they were happy to get that second goal in the end, because they were feeling the pressure that Leicester was putting on them. And there were times where they looked a little bit shaky. So I think that's definitely true.
Yeah, and it's something that Mark Skinner's been accused of doing, I think, the Man United head coach, because he seems quite content with 1-0 leads and not really pushing for a winner. And that's some Man U fans have found that quite annoying to watch. And I think Leicester really should have capitalised on that. I think ultimately they can't claim a missed penalty opportunity as the reason for losing. I think they weren't clinical enough in front of goal. What did you make of Alicia Lehmann's contribution? Because she's been a big kind of signing for Leicester City. And I'm sure with your research for the cutback, you'll have maybe looked at her in terms of the transfer window. How do you think she's going to help Leicester potentially in the next few games?
I think she's really added some attacking quality to the team. She's only played a few games, but her presence is known already, and she's really made herself known on the pitch. And there were a few chances in the last match where just her speed down that wing and getting into the box and creating chances, even if they didn't go in, it was noticeable. And I think she did really well to do that. I think it seems like she's gelled quite quickly with the team and seems like she hasn't been there for longer than just a couple of weeks. And I think as the season progresses and into the next season, the more that she plays with this team, I think she really is going to be one of the main goal scorers and have a real impact on the team.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think her pace and her directness of her runs has really been kind of annoying for opposition defenses. I think they've struggled to contain her at times, and I don't think Man United quite. I think they underestimated her. In my honest opinion, I think it's a shame that Leicester couldn't make more use of her. There weren't many efforts on goal. There was the Mouchon effort nearer the end, and Naomi Mouchon's an interesting one because I think that she should start the next game. For me, Rachel Williams, we like her experience, but as we've seen with her time in Man United, she's a 10-minute wonder kind of at the end of the game, and I think that could really add to Leicester. Having said that, I think Rachel Williams had a brilliant game defensively, especially with her head. We know how important she is in the air, so that's probably why Rick Passmore started her. But looking ahead to the Man City game, which we'll do later on in the show, I think she'll be one to, Mouchon and Rachel Williams, that's a conversation to be had, I think. Would you agree?
I definitely agree. I mean, I was going to make the same point actually, that I think she should be starting the next match, because I
Yeah.
think that the impact that she had when she came on, and she wasn't a late substitution. She came on, I think, in the 62nd minute or something, but she was so lively, was right there in the attack. And the chance that she had, I think honestly, she probably just rushed it a little bit. And if she had taken a little bit more time with the ball, maybe passed it to Lehmann at the far post, or just, taken a little bit more time with it herself, I think that would have gone in. And like you said, Rachel Williams has great experience, but she is also could be a very good sub. So
Mhm.
potentially having that rotation would be an interesting thing to see it play out in the next match. But I think Leicester are in a great position to have two players of that quality in that position. So I think it'll be interesting to see. But I think Mouchon had a really great game.
Brilliant. Well, we just had a comment here from Matt saying he's impressed with Lehman as she holds up the ball really well and absolutely ghosted through the United defence. Just needed a better final ball. I totally agree, Matt. And I think the likes of Mouchon, we've seen what she can do from an assisting perspective. I'm sure you'd agree, Reshma, that she looked lively, she looked threatening. So perhaps that's what Rick Passmore needs to change going forwards. So
Definitely,
yeah.
I think that's exactly right. The way that she went through that defense was really, really good. And again, maybe that partnership and between the two is something that can just develop over time as they play more together, but something that is definitely worth exploring in the next few matches.
Absolutely. Rick Passmore, let's talk a little bit about him before we move on to the ominous potential relegation battle conversation coming up. Rick Passmore saying that if they play like that for 100 minutes, they'll see a lot more success. It seems like the Foxes have taken the next step in terms of their team cohesion. Can you see them becoming more threatening towards teams higher up in the league as the season closes out? Can you see Leicester getting themselves out of their current 12th position, albeit with a game in hand? But they need some points, don't they?
Yes, they definitely do. And I think, like you said, they are bottom at the moment, but that's because they played one less than most of the other teams. But that relegation battle, that battle at the bottom is so tight at the moment. And I think when Rick Passmore made that comment, he was talking about the fact that Leicester put up a really great fight and they put
Mm-hmm.
so much pressure on the other team and they were not letting themselves down easily. And that's what every team in the WSL is doing at the moment. And I think that sort of the finishing touch that Leicester need at the moment is getting those goals and getting onto the scoreboard and working on that finishing. And I think there's getting there. There's progress, like you said. The match before, the first match against Man United was a 4-0 loss, and this was 2-0 and could have been 1-1, like we spoke about. So there's so much improvement, so much progress coming, and I think even though it doesn't look great at the moment, I think Leicester should be all right if they continue playing like this. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we're going into an important period now, aren't we? Obviously, Leicester face Manchester City away next week, top of the table. That's going to be a difficult fixture, but if they play like they did in the second half against Man United, could see potential upset. Maybe that's wishful thinking. Maybe I'm just too positive of a Leicester City fan. But I like to have positivity. I like to have hope. Do you think then that the fixtures against Liverpool, Aston Villa, and Everton will be where Leicester City need to perform? And how do you think they can exploit those results? Where do you think they need to pick up the most points?
I think in all of those matches, points need to be picked up, and I think you're exactly right when you say that those are the matches to exploit and to take advantage of, because those teams have shown lots of areas of weakness, even though they've also improved over time. There are weaknesses there that need to be and can be exploited. And I think if Leicester can come out with wins, ideally the 3 points would be what they want. But I think it's definitely doable. But like we said, every team in the WSL at the moment is coming up with big wins and upsets, and it's just so unpredictable. So we'll have to wait and see. But I do think that Leicester can put themselves in good stead for those matches. And actually, these matches against the top teams will be helpful for the confidence going into them. I think if they can play like they did against Man City as well, then they'll be going into those few matches with much more confidence. And with only 7 matches left in the WSL, those really need to be wins or at least draws to get points on the board.
Yeah, I think the big fixtures will be Liverpool and Everton, both away fixtures. So Leicester will have to turn around their horrendous away form. Um, Although they did pick up the points against London City Lionesses, so hopefully on the return fixture of that they can also pick up the 3 points. But I totally agree with you. I think it's crunch time now, isn't it? We need we need the points. We need the goals in particular to get those points because you're not going to win on a 0-0. And I think playing the likes of Mouchon and Alicia Lehman, getting them to work together and bringing on Rachel Williams will do the job. Shannon O'Brien did well when she came on, but I think she's lacked consistency. And there's a tendency in the, when talking about the women's game to not overly criticise players, but I think she needs to do better if she wants to get back in that starting position. But that was a brilliant deep dive. And for anyone watching, Réshma has written a fantastic article on the cutback about the bottom four teams and the relegation battle potentially going to play out this season. So be sure to check that out on their Substack. Let's talk a little bit about you personally, Réshma, because that's what we do on this show. We like to get to know the people that we're interviewing, and it always makes for really great conversation and really great insight into women's football and mainly reporting and journalism and commentary, but also ex-players as well. So how did you get into the world of reporting and particularly into the world of women's football?
So for me, I played football from a young age. I grew up in California, sort of in the Bay area outside of San Francisco. And then I moved to the UK about 10 years ago. So I played the sport in both countries. And growing up in the US, it is the biggest sport for girls, really. And it was very normal for me to play, but I'm sure you've understood this as well and you've experienced this, but we couldn't really watch women's football growing up. It wasn't something that you could watch on TV. It was hard to find. So for me, kind of going into working in football or becoming a player was never really something that I considered. And I was always interested in journalism. Didn't quite know what that entailed, especially going into uni. So I didn't study journalism. I studied history and Spanish. And when I was at uni, I thought about doing sort of internships and work experience, and I got some within the world of sports. And then through doing that, I realized how much I loved it and how cool it was to be able to combine my passion for a sport that I played and my passion for writing and talking about things and presenting and using my love of words. So it's been a really great experience being able to combine those two passions and do something that I really love doing now.
Oh, that's fantastic. No, California has grown some really fantastic players, hasn't it? Kristen Press comes to the forefront of my mind as a standout product of Californian football. What was it like growing up with the likes of the US women's national team on your radar? Did that sort of help in terms of the visibility of the game to you and knowing that professional players could become professional? Because I think from a UK perspective, and I'm sure you'll agree as well, the Lionesses have been a huge part of the growth over here. So I'd be interested to hear your perspective on both national teams and what they meant for you.
Absolutely. I think the way it happened with the US was it was just a bit earlier. The sort of momentum that came from England winning the 2022 Euros happened in 1999 when they won the World Cup. So for me, growing up with female football idols was kind of normal. And I also grew up in a country where the women's team were better than the men's team, especially when it came to the competitions. And, they were winning World Cups where the men's team were failing to qualify for World Cups. And that was interesting. And like I said before, this was the biggest sport for most girls. And there's so many people playing, and it was very normal. And I think moving to the UK, I sort of, it wasn't that girls weren't playing in this country, but seeing the growth that's happened in the last 5 years within the sport has been really exciting. And I feel like we're getting to a point where I would now argue that the WSL is the best league in the world. And you can see that by the fact that, especially with this transfer window, players from all over the world are coming and they want to come because this is what they believe is the highest standard of football, whether that's from Europe or from the US or anywhere else around the world.
No, I totally agree. And you see that, I mean, although Trinity Rodman didn't actually make it over in the end, she was certainly weighing up her options over here and arguably one of the best players in the world right now.
And you've seen it
Yeah,
with Sam Coffey just came to Man City, Alyssa Thompson signed for Chelsea, Naomi Girma, these really top world-class players all wanting to come to England to play and develop and become better players here.
absolutely. Let's just hope that Leicester stay in it in terms of the relegation battle. Let's talk a little bit about your job then, specifically. You are a freelance sports writer. What are the challenges that sort of come with being freelance? And what are the sort of positives and negatives to that that area of media?
I think
Yeah.
for me, it's still quite new and still something that I'm figuring out as I go. But what I've found with being a freelancer is I really enjoy the independence and the ability to have my own kind of freedom in what I write and when who I write for and when I want to write. That flexibility is really nice. The downside to that is obviously working for different editors, trying to it feels like I'm wearing different hats sometimes for different publications, but that's also a really important skill to develop, I think. And where I am in my career at the moment, I think it's really important to just keep going and um, really develop my skills in all of those different areas and not just writing and like presenting and speaking and interviewing. There's just so much to become better at, and I think being a freelancer gives me the opportunity to do all of that. And then at the same time, I think it's really built up my resilience and my ability to not just handle rejection but use it as a positive and to be able to take on feedback, whether it's positive or negative feedback, and really use it and take it as a challenge and make myself a better journalist.
No, absolutely. It's very encouraging to hear that as well as someone who's starting out in the industry too. So perhaps a sneaky personal question there, in terms of information that I like to hear from the likes of you and other people that we've had on the show. Bringing it back to the WSL, obviously your role in the cutback, as I mentioned previously, is to look at the non-top four teams, so excluding Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, Man United. Which WSL player outside of those four has caught your eye this season?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Not to put you
Um,
on the spot, but
that's a really good question. There's so many. I think there's so many from different clubs. If I were to choose a club that has caught my eye, and I think someone that has a team that's caught everyone's eye is Spurs. The way they're really challenging the top four and the other teams, and they're kind of sitting just behind Arsenal and really in contention for those Champions League positions and those places. I think they've done really well. I've been watching a lot of London City live and going to those London City Lionesses games, and I think the concern with them going into this season with the 17 signings that they had over the summer was how they would be able to play together and how they would be able to gel, and if it was just kind of a case of really great players but they can't play with each other. And by watching them, I've really seen the likes of their strikers, Freya Godfrey and Isabel Goodwin. They've had been doing amazing, and they're so young as well, but they're really putting up a fight against these teams and scoring really brilliant goals. So I've really enjoyed watching them. And at the same time, that team has players like Kosovare Aslani and Nikita
mm,
Paris, who are really, really experienced players, but they're still having such an impact. And even though they're considered the veterans on the team, they are really vital to that team. So maybe from watching them live a lot, those are the
yeah.
players that have caught my eye.
And what about bringing it back to Leicester? Which Leicester players have caught your eye? If you could pick one
Mm.
or multiple.
I think we spoke about her before, but Mouchon, I think, has done really
Yes.
well, and this isn't the first good performance that she's put in. But yeah, she's someone that I think is really exciting to watch, and I'm looking forward to watching more of her.
Yeah, I think she'll be key. I'm gunning for her to be started next week against Manchester City. Let's talk about Manchester City now. Let's talk about our upcoming fixture. It's a big one, top of the league, as I mentioned before. We have a situation on our hands, Leicester City women. Our captain, Sam Tierney, was given another yellow card against Man United, which means she'll be suspended against Manchester City. So not only are we losing our captain, we're also losing someone who's very, very key in our midfield and from a defensive perspective. I think maybe where Rick Parsons would have gone in the past is he'd have played Emma Janssen, our new
Mm.
Swedish signing in that role. She was played in a more CDM role against Tottenham Hotspur in our FA Cup match. I don't know if you managed to catch that match, but she picked up an injury. So perhaps we'll see Olivia McLaughlin take up that CDM role. Obviously, not great news for Leicester. How do you think they can battle without their captain? What do you think they really need to rely on in a fixture like Man City?
I think when losing your captain and perhaps having a gap or a little bit of a weakness in the midfield or in any area, what's really key going into a match is to not let that affect you and not think about the fact that that could put you at a disadvantage. I think if you go in believing that you can win and believing that you have the strongest team, then it's the mentality that has an impact on the match. And we've seen it. I mean, Leicester can put up a fight. And also, we've seen the fact that even though this is somehow turned into a match between the top and the bottom teams in the league, Man City also have areas of weakness and concern. They lost to Arsenal last week. And sorry, not last week, over the weekend. But, that wasn't their greatest performance. And coming off the back of that, I think they will be coming back with a vengeance. I think they will be quite annoyed that they lost, but it means that they are beatable, even though it seems like they are way ahead. And also, a few weeks ago, they played London City Lionesses and they won, but London City equalised. And then it took
Mhm.
a really late goal from Bunny Shaw to put them ahead. But you could see that London City, I wouldn't say took hold of the momentum after their match, but you could see that Man City looked a bit shaky and they were
Yeah.
worried. So I think if Leicester can do the similar thing and get an early goal or equalize or just put that pressure that they put on Man United from the beginning, I think they will be pleased with their performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone watching currently, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this fixture as well. I think against Manchester United, I think Man United's left back Sandberg looked particularly dangerous. Perhaps she exploited the space offered by the likes of Mailing and Neville pushing higher. So maybe a change from the back five from Rick Passmore might occur because I think Kirsten Kasperai will similarly exploit those areas that Sandberg did. Sandberg was able to cut inside quite easily in the first half, I thought, and I think Leicester dealt with her well in the second half, but that's something that Leicester will need to get on the ball with straight away.
I think
Um,
that's a really
yeah,
good
go
point.
ahead.
And on the flip side, if you think about Man City's defense, something that really stood out to me in their match against Arsenal was Rebecca Knack versus Olivia Smith, especially with that really brilliant goal. Olivia Smith just blew straight past her and she used her speed, which is something that Alicia Lehman has as well. And so those are sort of the gaps that I think it's actually come at a really good time, Leicester playing Man City after they've just lost, because they can see how they can be beaten. And that is one area of weakness that I think that they can really capitalize on.
Yeah, absolutely. I say why not? I say why can't Leicester beat Manchester City? We've seen massive upsets in past WSL seasons before, like when Arsenal lost to Birmingham City when they looked sure of winning the title, and then Chelsea came from behind. I think that was in 2023-24 season, or maybe the one before that. Don't quote me on that. But I certainly believe that Alicia Lehman will offer that directness, and unless Rebecca Nack has, done her homework, perhaps looked at her mistakes in the Arsenal game, that is definitely an area of weakness that Leicester can exploit. Key thing for me, like I said before, is to start players that will get the ball in the back of the net. I think goals obviously are going to win you the game, but I think in terms of growing confidence, like you say, believing that teams like that are beatable, puts Leicester in good stead and sets them up well for their future important fixtures. We've got Matt again with a good opinion here. I think the best option is a low block and try to hit quickly on the break. Hopefully not a wasted trip up north. I totally agree, Matt. You're not going to play a high defensive line against Manchester City. They will ping balls in behind for Miedemar and Carolyn, and that will be the end of your fixture, wouldn't it? Would you agree with Matt there, Réshma?
Yes, definitely. I think you've phrased it perfectly. That's exactly what you don't want to do. But at the end of the day, I think if this WSL season has taught me anything, at least so far, it's that it's unpredictable and you don't know what can happen, and any sort of moments can really just change the game and can change the league. So I do think that if Leicester go out, and I think, like you said, if they start from the beginning aiming to get a goal in the back of the net, then starting with those players who can do that, then I think it could be likely, and that could shift everything.
Well, yeah, we saw it with Everton. Everton beat Chelsea 1-0, and that was away. So if Leicester can pull something like that off, I think that will be so positive for them going forwards. I think as Fox's fans will be, laughing at the rest of the teams in the relegation battle, going, "Yeah, you're in for a tough time. We're on a great run here." Maybe it's not. You can't be positive after one game, but I think the way that Leicester have been gelling, the way that their cohesiveness has been showing up more and more as the season's progressed, I'm really hoping that we can see a really solid performance from them. Don't forget, in the return fixture, they held Man City 0-0 until the 75th minute. And it was Bunny Shaw had to pull off some heroics there to secure a win for Manchester City. So if Leicester can be equally as frustrating, I think they can get a good result. Give me your score predictions, Réshma, as we wrap up. What do you think we'll see?
I think it will be time. I think it's time for Leicester to score a goal and get on the sheet
I
on the
think
score
so
sheet.
too.
So I think maybe 2-1, 3-1.
I've lost Réshma. Apologies, everyone. I believe she was going to say 2-1 or 3-1 to Leicester. We'll see if she appears back on the screen on the stream. Anne says here, even Aston Villa is able to beat Man United at home. Very, very true, Anne. I'm feeling positive about this. For me, it's going to be a 2-1 win to Leicester City because I'm always positive. I'm always optimistic. And I'm hoping we'll see a really, really good result. So, yeah, great, everyone. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. Hopefully, Réshma will come back on the stream at some point, but I'm going to wrap up now. Head on over to www.forfoxsake.news to subscribe. Exclusive access to all things Leicester City women for the price of a pint. It's been a pleasure to have Réshma on. She's been fantastic. She's given us loads of great insight into the bottom of the league and the other teams that Leicester need to beat, as well as, her own experiences as a freelance journalist. So thank you very much to Réshma, wherever you are. Apologies once again for the technical difficulties, but we will see you again soon for another episode of the Women's Football Show. Thank you so very much for watching and tuning in. It's great to see all 39 of you. That's fantastic. And yeah, we should have a brilliant episode for you next week. Good luck to the Foxes. Let's get a win against Manchester City of all teams. And good luck to the men as well. Cheers.